Hello. Second take here. It was about this Aladdin trailer and this issue regarding Will Smith being Genie. Now, in the comics and such, Genie didn't really have any likeness. As far as I could tell, he had a big jaw, funny frame. If anything, since he's Aladdin, he would have had some likeness toward someone Arabic, someone Middle Eastern, someone in that influence, some in that cultural influential spectrum, or just influence in general. I don't know if they had any problems with like who is it, where is it from, blah 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 blah. I don't even know if it actually came from an actual story. But regardless of Will Smith's performance, he's just gonna, it's kind of strange, but it's like he's gonna hit those barriers of cultural sensitivity, and not just sensitivity, but just cultural differences. Like, he's black. There's dark skinned people, but that doesn't mean they're culturally African American. So I get it. Disney movies, they had white guys playing Arabic characters in the comics. What did we know? We didn't know. I mean, for all we know, in the same place they were talking animals, but most of them were white speaking people, as far as I could tell. And from what I saw, diversity, I guess that's especially now, were people such as in Star Wars, there was Earl Jones playing Star Wars as Darth Vader, and Jar Jar Binks. But it was the strangest thing, because people thought it was racism, but it was a black guy playing them and all that weird stuff. And I'm glad I wasn't watching it back then. I mean, I watched one, but I'm glad I didn't watch all of them or was a fan back then, because I would have been in that bandwagon of nostalgia trips. And it's the strangest thing, because it was a majority white time. You know, people don't think too hard about that. Like, oh, okay, that's great. But it's like, people like you wouldn't have been able to be on there. And so no wonder there's not, like, you know, they made Shazam, the other Genie type character with Shaq. I thought that was great, because I wasn't picking off any references, but because this is referential, it'd be real iffy to have some sort of voiceover with Robin Williams, especially because the guy's dead. And another thing is, like, for instance, Pokemon. I'm pretty sure they'd be happy with a witty, snarky white guy, even though the stereotype is that white guys are boring. And it'd be kind of weird, because people always like to cry racism whenever there's a black anything on there, apart from some sort of pigeonhole character, lead stereotype. Not lead, a side character or whatever. These are strange dynamics, but they were kind of racist in the beginning. From what I remember, one of the first movies, big movies, were Birth of a Nation. It was really racist. They made the KKK have to be heroes. So I'm like, there's your cultural reference there. Like, it made this huge spectrum from one place to the other, and we've been trying to make repairs ever since. So it's been it's strange, and especially for this one, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be taken well received. Because not just because he's black, but because it's Will Smith. Because Will Smith hasn't, as far as I can tell, his face hasn't been very well known. He's just been kind of ebbing and flowing within the cinema scene. And if I'm right, I think that dude has a studio, so he could have been churning out movies. Bright was awful. Just wanted to throw that one out there. I didn't view it as awful, but when I got done watching it, I was very confused. It was like there was a lot of stuff going on. The ending was nice, but it was like, it was weird, and it reminded me of Gravity Rush. No relation to it, but it was like, it was nice. It was fun, at times nauseating, but the ending was the true ending, I guess. It was like a secondary ending, something like that. It was very confusing, because she basically was around a lot of indecent people, and she was basically crapped on most of the series. But, oh, I love the world, I'm gonna die for the world. It's like, okay, sure. I mean, I don't care too much about it. I just found it intriguing, because it was like they were doing prophecy type stuff, and it was like, you have to follow this character around, and then we finally found her after traversing the worlds around the area, and this is after you beat like the first big boss type thing. You're like, oh, okay, this creature you finally realize is like a death weapon. she's finding her home. She's trying to find her home, so to speak. It's strange, but you know, you go through all this stuff and you realize, oh, okay, the world's ending, and you have to be the person to stop it. And she ends up sacrificing her life for people who kind of basically use and abuse her. They just kind of coerce her into doing stuff, if you think about it. But going back to this movie review, is weird because it's just it's culturally all over the place, and it's funny because we have history of just merely being culturally insensitive and really abusing things and having like a cultural misunderstanding about things. And we rewrite history, we rewrite stories, and we have profited off of it as children. Our childhood consists of these movies. We didn't think too hard about Aladdin actually being Middle Eastern. At least for me, I didn't. I just thought, this place is different. This guy's different. His voice sounds like something I'm used to hearing. You know, that's for me. That is i.e. Disney movies. That's i.e. white guys. Simba, he's African. He's basically African. If you want to count some ethnicity to him, he's African. You know, you hear, but again, that's just all those nuances that you hear. Oh, okay, his name's Simba, but he sounds like a white guy. He has the little part like a white guy. There's Nala, but these are just fairy tale names, you know. There's no cultural significance to it. There's the Pride Lands. There's zebras and all this stuff. None of these stuff is in America, but it's just a peak of America. It was like this idea I had about white guys coming to Japan, and it was just this perspective of American person coming to Japan, and he's just foreigner. Now, of course, that's true, but when Japan comes and see foreigner, and rather the bright side of a foreigner, the positive side of a foreigner, they're not looking at a black guy. They're not looking at an Asian. From what I've heard, every time they see a black guy, they ask if they're from Africa or not. And I think from a very, very extremely ignorant standpoint, that is fair to say. They've never seen black guys. Heck, even the guy historically known as Yasuke, which I don't think is his true name, but a name that they gave him because they couldn't pronounce his actual name from his actual tribe. I mean, he was a slave. The guy Nobunaga, who was, I guess he was heading at the time, the central capital, or was it Tokyo? I can't remember. But the guy who was there, he'd never seen a black guy. He was Japanese. He only seen his own and probably some of those Jesuits, which I believe are the people who brought him. And they were intrigued with this black man, Yasuke. They thought he covered himself with ink and tried to have him strip buck naked and wash himself. He was intrigued with this guy. And a bunch of stuff happened. But let's just say their ignorance isn't far-fetched. They haven't seen too many people outside their culture. Now, even regardless now, there are people who are in remote areas in Japan who don't know a thing about black people and are very extremely curious to the point of prejudice on the other side of black people, because they don't know us, and they possibly assume the worst. Optimism, pessimism, and that doesn't make it right. It's just it exists. So, going back to this, Will Smith, I don't know. He's had mixed reviews in regards to the movie scene, so it's like I wouldn't mind seeing him. I'm black. I identify with a person. It's not just representation or identification. It's what's familiar. So when you grow up and you hear familiar sounds, familiar faces, see familiar faces, unless you are like a mixed child or some person who grew up in a multi-ethnic place, these things won't be an issue to you. But to the majority, which is whites, who's funding stuff? Majority, I can't say they funding everything, but they're definitely funding some of these projects back in the day, like Lion King and stuff. The majority versus minority. And like, for instance, Black Panther got a lot of praise because of the minority culture. Like, it reflected our culture. It wasn't just a Marvel Cinematic thing, in which, again, I'm like, it kind of discounts that, but Stan Lee could only do what he could do in terms of representing an African culture. And I think the dude who actually directed it did a finer job, because if they stuck with the whole spear checking things, these are an indigenous tribe, and yes, that could make sense, but it's like, no, they modernized with the times. Even during Winter Soldier, I believe they were a part of the culture. They're part of the country, right? If I'm right, because his father T'Chaka was there. He was in the the United Nations place or something like that, where just before he got killed, he was there. So he had to have had some sort of representation of Wakanda. It's just, I guess they had an assumption that Wakanda was just any other African place that was underdeveloped, had poor technology apart from what was given. And it's weird. It's the strangest thing. They gave the highest critique to the economy and stuff. Like, how does it survive? How does it still there? Like a place that's not a European country is not survivable, sustainable in itself. Like, how do you know they're not putting in, if they have spies and sleeper cells throughout America, how do you know that they're not making under the hand deals with people who may need it? Or even how you know they're not like reverse engineering it to be regular minerals or something. I don't know. I'm just saying, why are we questioning their economy? Why are we even questioning their existence as a whole? That's one thing I was always curious about. I'm like, I mean, you have superhero serums and you have all these other things, but why are we bringing that back to universe? Why are we bringing their economy back to universe? That's something I just didn't understand. And there's stuff like they're just playing things like the pyramids and stuff. Not aliens. They're people. You know, if we want to keep saying be humans, we're humans, then you need to say that the African people, despite European influence, has some intelligence. It's a human aspect. They're human. They're intelligent. So, but in this movie, I kind of wish that there was some, like, for instance, if it was Aziz Ansari, and I get it, like, we're pigeonholing the race and we saying, I don't know who you are, you're Arab, here, get him in there. But I'm like, and it sucks because even that line of thinking in itself is a poor judgment because it denies the person. But even it's so strange. It's like our world is so complicated. It's not just complicated now, but it was like it's kind of fixing the nonsense that we had before, where it was like, okay, to avoid all those cultural sensitivities, let's just have white guys behind these voices. I mean, behind these characters. You know, and I'm like, I guess sure. I mean, even when M. Night Shyamalan tried to do it in a more cultural aspect, you know, I mean, I guess when I think about it, like the water tribe were based off the Inuit people, dark skinned people in the freezing places, and I guess I get that. That kind of makes sense. And they tried to have the darker skinned people as the Fire Nation. And to me, it's like, culturally, I mean, just thinking about it in terms of like the melanin and stuff, being in hotter climates and stuff, it kind of would make sense for darker skin because the shield against the sunlight. But but again, the Inuit people. So I don't know. That's always kind of a tricky thing. But it was kind of weird. But it was just more so out of its likeness. But it's the strangest thing because I guess these people, these genies, they have to be under some likeness, right? I mean, or not? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Is it under a likeness? Is it an Arab person? Is it just a person like in the movie, the older movie, where he's just big jaw? He doesn't really have a likeness. He's just kind of there. He's just a funny genie person. And does he have to look like a person? Again, he was just a blue person. You know, he was a blue person. He didn't have any likeness. He didn't look like anybody. He just had a ponytail. He was doing his thing. And again, reminded me of Shazam, but it wasn't that. Really, wasn't that. But I liked it. I liked that. It's going to really hit the fan in some way. It's going to keep giving us these conversations, whether we want to or not. Because it's like, because Will Smith is a superstar, I guess. Celebrity. I think that's a better word. I don't mean to discount him in that. It's just, isn't celebrity and superstardom kind of based on like continual showmanship of your craft, like he's continually on the main screen? That's my guess. But celebrity is a better word because he's still in that status, that stratosphere. So it's like, even though he's a good celebrity figure, a celebrity, would it be awkward for him to be in that? Because it's like we finally moved away from basically a darker skinned white guy, and I get people say, oh, that's weird, you're being, you know, a snowflake and blah 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 blah. No, I'm just being culturally just trying to be culturally aware. So I'm like, if this is an air place, why are we putting the white guy here? Why are we putting the darker skinned guy here? I mean, you know what would be even more appropriate? To have a I couldn't even tell you because I don't know where he is. I couldn't tell you. But is the strangest thing is if I say Indian American, great. Okay. If I say a Pakistani American, if I say a Iranian American, I don't know. There's just a lot of places, a lot of people, a lot of Middle Eastern ethnicities, ethnicities. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of them. So it's like, which ones would you choose? How'd you choose them? I like Black Panther's place because it was definitely a what is it, Pan-Africanistic perspective, and yeah, because Wakanda doesn't exist, so it has to grab some influence from somewhere. Not that they did it, it was culturally relevant, but people don't talk about that. Why? I mean, it sucks. Because I kind of get tired of doing this where I'm like explaining for other cultures why they have ignorance and insensitivities. But it's like, just because I explain them doesn't mean they're right. So for instance, in Wakanda, where they explain, well, we just get so enamored by his description of the African perspectives and all these other things is great. It's awesome. It's part of our culture that we get, that was taken away from us. Regardless if we're slaves or not, we bear the brunt of those past people. We're not just Americans, we're African Americans. So it's just looking at that and just being just in awe of the culture and all the time and dedication that it took for him to fit our past culture in that movie. So I get it. It's not from, like, white people probably won't understand where they're coming from. And also, sorry about that. But also, like, if we saw Brave, if Brave has some sort of have Gaelic songs in there, shouldn't they be like, this is great because it reflects our culture properly? Or if they have How to Train Your Dragon, shouldn't they have those in there? I mean, I don't know where that's from. Is it Norse mythology? Shouldn't they have some appreciation there? So it's like, and people just get so upset. Oh, I hate it. It's not that great, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, can you at least appreciate where it's coming from? And it sucks. America don't care about African anything. Unless we want to give over to them. I'm sorry, that bothered me a lot. And so that bothers me. But let's just spin it on his head. Will Smith he's not Arab. He doesn't have any cultural influence there, as far as I can tell. I don't know. But just in terms of his likeness, he's not an Arab person. And I'm like, I don't care about, oh, the black man, you got to support the black man. No, because we had our time and likeness, and we like that. And when they say, well, this ain't about, this is, you guys been had a black superhero. Yeah, but if you want to think about it, the guy was supposed to be half and half. He's basically half and half. He's a mixed child, and he's a vampire. Really? We're gonna say he's a black superhero, but he's awesome because he's half and half? He could have been anybody. He could have been a half and half. He's black human, white vampire, or just vampire. That's not real. He's a half mythical person, basically. But now we have somebody who's like, who's ancestor African. And then you have people who like Killmonger. He's Wakandan. He's not I guess Wakandan American, yeah, because he's been born in America. But yeah. And so for us, the feelings are different because he's not super mythical. And I guess in a sense, Wakanda is super mythical because in itself it's just a technologically advanced place, and not for Africa, but just the place itself. It has a very rare mineral of being, vibranium, and they used it and they worked through it and stuff like that. And of course, I guess that is a big question, but still, it's just like, why is that even an issue? Why can't we just dream? Why can't it just be a technologically advanced place just cause? It's not like people are having questions about a super soldier serum. I mean, and that was legit based off history. They were trying to make a super soldier serum, the Ubermensch, the Superman. And so, which is kind of ironic because it's like, it's Jewish made. Superman, from what I understand, is Jewish made, but the Ubermensch was a German thing, and Hitler and stuff like that. I don't know. I just find that kind of funny. But I don't know. It just made me think. Would it be nice to have some sort of Asian influence? I mean, yeah, I guess you could call it Asian because they are Asian. Asian influence as a genie. That would have been nice. But then again, for me personally, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Aladdin movie like that. I've seen a bit of it, and I get the premise, you know. Oh, okay, he sees a girl he likes, she's a princess, he wants to impress her, so he's trying to pretend he's a prince so that he can win her favor, and then they realize, oh, he's not a prince, and all this other stuff, and there's a bad guy, and he wants the genie, and he turns into a genie, and all this stuff like that. As far as I remember, it's been a long time, and I haven't watched it all the way like that. But, the premise ain't too hard to figure out, you know. But that's the strange part, especially in America these days. Like, we're in this place where it's a cultural melting pot, and I've been thinking about this diversity, you know. And one of the things I'm not a fan of in terms of diversity is poor acting with diversity. I don't care how diverse you need to be. If your acting sucks, your acting sucks. And that's my problem. And I don't care about cultural. I mean, it's not really about cultural differences, because if it is culturally different and that's what makes it sucks, then that's stupid. That's something that America needs to get itself together, and people who the majority needs to get itself over. You know, get over it. You know, you have people who don't act like you. You have people who don't talk like you. You have people whose cultures and customs aren't yours. So regardless of people like our authorities who try to handle people and they say, I was scared. Well, it's like, you need some cultural understanding. You need some cultural training. Understanding not every culture is going to be like you. And if you're going to have a gun or something like that, if you're an authority, if you're going to wield the sword responsibly. And that means understanding what place you're wielding your sword at. Yeah, since you're going to be under these people to protect and serve, you should. And these are for police. I don't care who they are. Is that they have, like, not only do you have to sit here and do this, like, wield your gun around and stuff, you need to be culturally aware about where you're at, who you talking to, you know. So if a person does get in your face, you can understand he's not trying to kill you. That's just how they confront people. They try to size them up. But ultimately, maybe we need a cultural roll call in America, because there's so many cultures, and it's like we try to figure out and try to make this a cultural utopia, which you can't. Just like I've heard, I forget the guy's name. He's still a YouTuber. He's still putting out African cultural things. I know his tagline is know thyself. But yeah, he always has, like, he had this idea about why Africa fell, like the big continent of Africa. And of course, there was a bunch of things in fighting, out of fighting, just unrest. But one of the things he mentioned was that it's a hard thing to balance with diversity within Africa. To rule under one person with different kinds of people, that's hard to do. That's extremely hard to balance. And was that a monarchy? I could say that's a monarchy. And it's like, that's hard to do. This is very hard to do. So given that, in America, to have all these different cultures and diversities in there is hard to do. What's even extremely harder is for it to be done by one person of one culture who's trying to make it work by fitting and associating different cultures. That's why I was glad that the guy who actually who directed Black Panther got cultural influence from different places, and even took his team, from what I remember, to Africa, to parts of Africa. I thought that was great. Like, he knew it was going to take a lot, so he did his research, his due diligence, and he had some of the cast, was it some or all? I'm not sure, but he went and had them go over there to get the experience, and whatever other reason it was. But I was like, I think he did it well. Maybe for the Nigerians who are, I mean, from what I've heard, even the people who are immigrants here from Africa, parts in Africa, even they say he did a good job. I'm like, see, that's a good job. But I just don't think these filmmakers do I'm not saying they don't work hard. I'm just saying that culture aspect is lacking at times. And we say, oh, you're a snowflake. I'm like, no, you've been living in a place where it's just one culture speaking through different stories of different cultures and different identities. And now we're just understanding, like, people are different. You know, not every, like, we want to live the same, but it's like people live different spaces and different takes and stuff like that. So it's like, why do we act like that's a problem now? Why is that an issue? Why is it bad that we're trying to fix these cultural slights that we used to be okay with? Why is that a problem? You know, things used to be easier back then. Well, of course, there's a lot of assumptions. Of course, there was a lot of assumptions. You know, if you live in a culturally dominant place and you start speaking for other people, of course you're going to have an easier time because it's only you that's being taken care of. You know, and people happy. Well, yeah, happy to get a paycheck. You know, but if we sit here saying, like, if a person saying, hey, I want to be an actor or actress, and then filmmakers say, all right, we want you to be the most stereotypical person that we could think of, or we want you to be gangster, or blah, 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 blah. And you trying to be an artist, trying to be an actor, and you have a repertoire of different acting styles, different visual cues. Let's say you even look up to the greats, and you have different forms of acting, but they say, no, fit yourself in the most stereotypical place you can be. Well, it's either do this or starve. Maybe I'll just have to eat crow for a while until I get something that sticks with me. Then I'll be able to choose. Then I'll be able to choose what I want. But for now, I'll just stick with this. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them are just trying to get by. But it's like, just because I explain it doesn't mean it's right. And it's just, that's the strangest thing for me. It's very strange. Why we do. It's sometimes I wonder, do we have integrity like that? You know, are we willing to wait until we get something? Till we get something that's, like, good. Not just money-wise, but something that regards our integrity. I wonder that. And I'm not saying this stuff gonna be easy, but it's like, just like with the lady, maybe we're gonna have to have another approach. Maybe it's gonna be like Ali Wong, where she says, just keep screenwriting, just keep writing. You have your time, just keep writing. You know, essentially, that's very, to me, I like to think that's the equivalent of keep your head low and do your job. You know, but it's like saying, like, you know, okay, if you work alongside these people who are actually making these films and stuff, and you do your job and you do it well, and you just, when the opportunity comes, you take it to show off your chops. Maybe you'll get that opportunity where they're like, wow, you're actually good. I never knew. Of course you never knew. You're not looking for her. You're just expecting her to do her job. But it's like, okay, perhaps maybe that's what you got to do. You know, yeah, maybe.